Hiya, it's Hannah the Artisan Duck, and I'm back today with a slightly different style of tutorial. I was making this, and as I went along I just filmed little bits of it, and I figured I'd do a voiceover instead. So I've started off by conditioning my black clay, and I have rolled that through my machine on a number 2, so it's not quite the thickest setting. And then I've gone in with this Perfect Pearls because I wanted a green, spooky Halloween kind of glow in the centre of the picture. I've then put more black clay through my extruder, and I'm cutting 4 pieces, and they're each 5 centimeters long. And then I go in and I'm just going to roll sort of either end because I wanted to soften that cut edge, so that when we coil it up like this, it's not going to be totally blunt on the inside part of the swirl. It'll sort of roll up much nicer. I'm going to roll both sides at the same time, so I want to make sure that they are of reasonably equal size, and obviously rolling in opposite directions so they form kind of an S shape. I have embedded some jump rings into the clay on the oval. I've just pushed them in, but I have really made sure that they are pushed into that oval shape. And I'm going in with some liquid clay on a paintbrush just around the outside of this oval, and this is going to act like a glue for the details that we've just been making and all the other details that we add to this picture frame. I'm doing it this way because the Perfect Pearls will reduce how sort of sticky the base layer of clay is, and I want to make sure that these do obviously stick well. Plus I wanted to embed the jump rings between the clay, so I figured that adding that as an extra layer of glue would work well. And also, because I'm not sort of pressing the clay down firmly, I can very carefully use a tool and just go in and move them around and just make sure that the positioning is exactly as I wanted it. I've then cut 2 more pieces. These were 4 centimeters long, and I've coiled them so they're much tighter and they fit perfectly in that gap. Obviously, if you're doing different shapes, different sizes, just check it all fits before you go in and finalize it. I then go in with my craft knife and I'm just cutting little bits of the extruded clay and rolling them into balls, and I'm going to use these to decorate around my frame. So as you can see, there are some gaps where the swirls join, or those longer swirls have some quite sort of bigger pieces, around the jump rings, that kind of thing. There's some bigger gaps. So I'm just going to add these little balls of clay around to fill in the gaps. And where there's a bigger gap, I will just put 2 or 3 in each time. And that way it fills it up quite quickly, but still looks very pretty. On some of the places I did roll some smaller balls of clay. I just made sure that whatever I added on one side, I added on the other side, so it was totally symmetrical. I also did this and added them on the inside of the frame as well, which you'll see. I went in with some gold Perfect Pearls around the outside of the frame, and I've added some little hearts there as well, which I didn't record. I'm then going to go in and shape my pumpkin. So I'm using a terracotta coloured clay because I was worried about using a much brighter orange given the colour scheme I'd already got. I wanted to keep it looking sort of a bit more rustic, so I'm going in with terracotta. I have rolled it into a circle, well, not a circle, an oval, and then flattened it for that basic pumpkin shape. And now I'm using this needle tool, whatever you want to call it. I call it a pointy tool, but I'm going in and I'm trying to sort of make a C shape around sort of the out, so it curves towards the outside of the pumpkin, if that makes sense, to get that sort of 3D texture to the pumpkin shape. And this is actually quite fiddly. This is a lot smaller than it looks here on the camera, but I'm just going in and refining that, and I want to make sure it dips down at the top as well, so it does look sort of really nicely rounded and shaped. I used some liquid clay to glue this to the base of the frame. I've added like a stalk to the top of the pumpkin, which I clearly didn't record, and then I'm going in and adding this little vine detail, and this was super fiddly because the clay is so thin. So I did the initial sort of swirl of the clay before putting it on the pumpkin, and then finished off on the base, and it was one of those situations where if it didn't work, I just have to leave it be. So I'm now using a craft knife and I'm just picking up little scrapings of clay, and I am just using some liquid clay and then putting that at the base of my pumpkin with a dotting tool and adding those little scrapings of clay. I did green and a brown because I wanted to give the impression of there like being earth underneath the pumpkin, and then leaves and moss or whatever, you know, get like a really autumnal feel to it. So I'm just making sure that there's an even mix of that colour around the base of the pumpkin, and then it is ready for the oven. So pop it in, and when it's cooled down, I went in with 2 coats of varnish. I went in very carefully for the first coat because I didn't want to disturb the powder that I'd put on top, but there it is, the finished pumpkin. I added some black chain to those jump rings to finish it off, and I really love how it turned out, to the point I think I might make more. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I shall see you again soon. Bye!